What's up, weirdo? Shade Tree Surgeon here, and today we're talking BMWs. Specifically, these two examples right here. Sitting here behind me, I got almost 40 years of BMW heritage, even though the company goes back way further than that. We'll get into that in a minute. Over here, I've got a 1983 R100 RS, and over here, I have a 2020 R1250 RS. Both of these motorcycles belong to Richard Boom, whom you guys have seen in the videos a few times before. We're actually at the Dirty Shame right now because this parking lot will look real familiar, and he has kindly allowed me to take two of his multiple fleet of BMW motorcycles out on a test ride to make this video for you guys. The fact that he has both these bikes and also a 2006 RS and a 1987 RS, basically this is what inspired me to make the video, is because you can look at all these motorcycles and see all the similarities between them and kind of look at the heritage that is BMW and how absolutely kind of bizarre it is. And we're getting into that in a minute, but let's go ahead and take a look at the differences between that 1983 and the 2020, because literally those are the same model motorcycle. Obviously 2020 is a lot bigger and a lot better, but same bike, basically, same bike. So, in the spirit of age before beauty, let's go ahead and see what it was like to ride a top-of-the-line BMW in the year 1983. Well, here we go. This is the best Bavaria had to offer in 1983. 1000cc opposed boxer twin. It's kind of cool. You can actually see how the cylinders are opposed when you do kind of a top-down look at it. The right cylinders set a little back. So let's see what this thing's like to ride around. And as I said before, this is the RS model. So this was actually the sport model. And you can see it's pretty sporty with this fairing. This fairing was just, everybody loved it. And it's got these tiny little clip-on handlebars here, even though they make a much sportier BMW now, but back in the 80s, this was it, man. This was their sport bike. Even in the 80s, 1000cc, that was a pretty big bike. And with this fairing, this was, I mean, you were doing some serious miles and some serious speed on the highway. I've ridden this motorcycle before, and I know how good this fairing is. It's absolutely phenomenal. And just like you'd expect from BMW, even in the 80s, everything is Brembo. It's a nice bike, and you can tell how old it is. You can tell that this is a 1980s bike, but it is still, you got to imagine riding this thing around back in the day. This was the Mac Daddy. It's fun. I was born in 1983, by the way. Me and this bike are both 36 years old. Again, you're not going to set any land speed records on this thing. At least not by today's standards anyway, but by 1980 standards, man, this thing got up and moved, that's for sure. Richard actually had one of these motorcycles in Germany that he personally put over 100,000 miles on. And that actual motorcycle is sitting behind the ride factory, so it still exists. And maybe one day it'll get what's coming to it and be restored. But this was it. This was BMW's top-of-the-line sport bike, although all sport bikes were pretty much sport touring bikes back in the day. Oh, in the early 80s, Japan had a couple of fared motorcycles, but really this was it. This was a sport bike. This was a fast motorcycle. A fully fared, you are completely enclosed. A fully fared sport motorcycle, and they've been putting full fairings on these things for a long time before this. Let's see if I can figure out this kickstand. Okay, there are definitely some tricks with these old BMWs, including a very strange kickstand and the ever-present Bing carburetors, which if you own a BMW, you know the mysteries of the Bing carburetor, because you have to.
53 parts.
53 parts. He knows the exact number of parts. All right, let's time travel from the year 1983 to the year 2020 on the exact same motorcycle. Obviously not the exact same motorcycle, but this is a RRS, a R1250 RS. This is the same designation. This is the newest iteration of the bike I just rode that you can buy today. And I'll get into it in a little bit, but so many things are the same. You still have a opposed boxer style engine. You still have shaft drive. A lot of the things on this bike just really kind of haven't changed at all. All right, immediately getting on it, it's a lot taller, but I guess human beings are a lot taller too. And of course, we got a little bit of Bluetooth fob happening here, the TFT dash, dynamic modes, electronically controlled suspension. This is definitely a different animal. Immediately you get on it, and the position is a little more aggressive, but not that bad. My knees are bent a little bit more, but you know, on the old RS, it was really just like, even though it had these same kind of, not necessarily clip-ons, but kind of sportier handlebars, your feet position was straight up and down, like on a standard motorcycle. And this one feels just like my Ducati, where they're just set ever so slightly back. Yeah, going down the road, these even sound the same, although that's definitely not the same. There's your big difference right there. Yes, there is a lot different about this motorcycle and that old 1983 I got off of. Not the least of which is that this thing is just aggressively fast. It is just aggressively fast. It is an incredibly powerful motorcycle in a way that only a twin can be. Is a four-cylinder motorcycle of the same the same pedigree as a four-cylinder motorcycle faster than this? Yes, it is. But there is just something about a twin, whether it be a pose in an L configuration or a V, that always does something for me. So here's what's kind of funny about BMW motorcycles. Here I am on this 2020 R1200 RT. This is basically the top of the line. I mean, you could say the GS is technically their flagship, but they've got the same motor. So this is essentially the best BMW Boxer engine that you can get in a motorcycle right now. The best BMW has to offer. And you can tell it's the best because I'm sitting on this thing. I'm already in love with it. It's already just an absolutely amazing motorcycle. Like, there's nothing not to love about it. It's fast, it's comfortable, everything works. Like, this is a great bike. And so why am I making this video? Why is this video called "This is why BMW motorcycles suck"? Because let's be honest here, this motorcycle does a lot of things. But it does not suck. As I was mentioning before, this is going to be a little bit about the history of BMW motorcycles and about why motorcycles are the way they are in the first place, because I feel like BMW, more than anybody else, is such a perfect example because it's an old company that really relies a lot on its heritage as motorcycle builders. It relies a lot on its heritage on the way its engines are built. And I know my BMW fans are just going to be spitting and cussing right now, but when you look at a twin-cylinder engine, when obviously other configurations are far superior, BMW has a lot in common with Harley-Davidson. So make sure you got something handy to catch your monocle when it pops out, because BMW and Harley-Davidson have a lot more in common than you might think. People are going to be so mad at me for not doing an actual review on this bike, but it's not an actual review. It's just a comparison between old and new, and how you can look at this motorcycle that is the pinnacle of technology. This is the pinnacle of what BMW has to offer compared to their old bikes. And at their pinnacle of technology, they're still using an opposed twin design. I've still got two big old jugs hanging out right in front of my feet. And so why are they doing that? Why are they still relying on this antiquated design when even in their own company, they have 4-cylinder motorcycles which vastly outperform this bike that you can buy for cheaper? You can get a better performing bike, a 4-cylinder, an S1000RR, for less money than you can get this bike for. So A, why do they keep making this bike the way they make it? And B, why would anybody ever choose to pay more for design that's not as good? And the same company, you can get a different design that performs better and costs less money. Yet people still choose to buy the Boxer engine. Well, besides the fact that twin-cylinder engines are just, there's just nothing like them. Even if a 4-cylinder is faster, nothing makes my heart move like a twin. So that's enough time on the bike. Let's move into the history of BMW motorcycles and why they choose an inferior design, and why that's a great analogy for why we choose to ride motorcycles, period.
Well, I promised you guys a reason for the title. This is why BMWs suck. But we gotta start at the beginning. BMW has been around since the early 1900s under a few different names, not officially taking BMW as their name until 1922. They mainly engineered and produced aircraft engines and other industrial general-purpose engines until 1923, when they made their first motorcycle, the R32. They wouldn't make their first car until 1928, but this is about bikes, not about cars, so back to the R32. The BMW R32 was a 500cc horizontally opposed twin-cylinder bike with a shaft final drive, just like the 2020 R1250 RS that I rode earlier in the video. 97 years later, BMW is still using that design. As to why? Well, that has a lot to do with why they made that 500cc Boxer twin in the first place. You see, BMW's main focus up to that point was aircraft engines. While there had been a few flat engines in cars, you mainly found Boxer-style opposed engines or flat engines in aircraft. In fact, the Pierce monoplane, one of the very first, if not the first, depending on who you ask, airplanes to ever achieve flight, was powered by a Boxer twin. Even BMW's own logo is a stylization of an aircraft propeller in motion, with the white representing the blurred propeller and the blue being the sky. Now, that interpretation of their logo is part myth, because the logo is really just a stylized Bavarian flag. But people started saying the propeller thing after BMW started using airplanes in their ads in the late 1920s. And BMW basically said, holy crap, that propeller thing sounds way better than the flag thing, let's go with that. So yeah, the propeller interpretation is basically canon now. Anyway, BMW engineered and produced airplane engines, so putting an engine in their motorcycle that shared aircraft-style engineering just made sense. Now, a lot of people will say that the BMW Boxer twin was basically just a radial aircraft engine with all the other cylinders knocked off, and that's really not quite true. When you look at a BMW Boxer engine next to a radial aircraft engine, it certainly looks like that could be true, and it sounds really cool, but at the end of the day, flat engines and radial engines are very different beasts. Although it is worth noting that although radial engines have gone the way of the dodo, flat Boxer-style engines are still powering small modern airplanes to this very day. Back to motorcycles. So BMW put an aircraft-inspired engine in their motorcycle, not because it was cool, or it was quirky, or even because it was necessarily a better design. It's just that that's what they knew how to make, and they still put that style of engine in their bikes to this very day. And while there are a few minor benefits to a flat twin, low center of gravity for one, the Japanese unequivocally proved that an inline 4-cylinder configuration is a vastly superior design for making power. You can argue it till you're blue in the face, but on paper, a 4-cylinder engine will put a twin's dick in the dirt in almost every single way. It's just better. Hell, even BMW proved it with their 4-cylinder engine making 200 horsepower with 1,000 cc's, while their twin takes 1,250 cc's to make 136 horsepower. Obviously, there's exceptions to this rule, with some twins being better than some 4-cylinders, but they're just that, exceptions. Yet BMW continues to make flat twin engines, and charge more money, by the way, for these flat twin engines than any other motorcycle in their lineup. Just like Ducati, Moto Guzzi, Triumph, and Harley Davidson, you have engineers who are designing engines the best they can while being held back by the heritage of design. I see this argument pretty frequently from guys on Japanese superbikes. They say, why would anyone choose to ride something so antiquated as a Harley Davidson or a BMW with these 2-cylinder designs that are throwbacks to the 1920s? Why would you ever bother to have an engine that is that big of a displacement that makes comparatively so much less power? Pouring millions of dollars in research and development into an inferior design seems downright ridiculous, and honestly, it kinda is. But to me, it's an analogy for motorcycles in and of itself. Motorcycles are inferior to cars in almost every single way. Cars can make more power, they can handle better, stop faster, carry more, shelter you from the elements, and are infinitely more safe than motorcycles. Obviously, this isn't every car, but if we're picking out dream teams, then the cars are gonna win it every time. So why do we choose motorcycles? Why ride a bike across the country instead of a car? Why choose that handicap? Why take that risk? Why subject yourself to 100% unnecessary hardships by being on 2 wheels instead of inside 4? That's why BMWs suck. Because they needlessly handicap themselves with antiquated engineering, just like Harley Davidson, Triumph, Ducati, and Moto Guzzi do. Why would they do that when better and more efficient designs are readily available? To me, the answer is easy. It's the same reason we choose to ride motorcycles instead of drive cars. Because fuck you. That's why. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like on it and share it with your favorite dad jeans wearing BMW GS owner. Hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment telling me to die in a fire made out of super AIDS. Until next time, y'all, keep it weird.